Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dummy Load. It is Wednesday, December 25th, 2043. Is that right? No.
No.
Oh, wait. No, sorry. Okay.
Dennis, you always get it
Knew I was
wrong.
going to get it. It's May 16th, 2014, Friday. We are back. You might notice Dave looks a little different tonight.
I think I look better.
Yeah, you've got less facial hair. And you got more hair on your head.
And we.
But we're going to go into some topics about people getting into trouble because that seems to be the way of the world these days. Everybody's losing their TV show or they're getting their movie canned because of something they said or they're getting fined or whatever it is. But that's not really Dave. Dave is actually
Running
over
the ship.
in Michael's chair today. Why is that, Dave?
Well, I'm in Michael's chair as the producer, and you'll notice that the Patriot wing of the studio is completely empty, so we don't have Mark either. And that's because Mark and Michael have gone on a romantic getaway to the West Coast.
Oh, yeah?
They're just taking a nice coastal drive up to Seattle from California and
Go to...
maybe do some camping.
Yeah. Go on the beach and
I've asked, well,
dig their little toesies into the sand.
why are you guys taking this trip together? Well, because we've always wanted to go up the coast. Okay.
Because you make fun of us when we hold hands here.
You're making this sound like Brokeback Mountain or
This
something.
is the first I've ever.
Brokeback Beach.
Well, this is the first I've ever heard of this lifelong desire to drive up the coast, but
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
I did it with my dad and my brothers way back when I was like probably 12, but we didn't go the whole coast. We went into like San Francisco and then we went up into Oregon.
It's a beautiful drive.
Yeah, it's Oregon,
So
then Washington,
gorgeous.
right? Yeah, they went up into Oregon. Oregon's pretty nice. Like some nice like streams, and we went to. Is that where Myrtle Beach is? Myrtle
Beach is in South Carolina. That's
No,
the
it's what am I
exact
thinking
other-
of?
That is the farthest place in the
Not
entire
Myrtle
country.
Beach. It's darn it.
There's literally nothing.
Now I'm on
in
the spot. I
United
can't
States.
remember what is it? Oh, I'll figure it out later. Whatever. It was beautiful. And we drove through the tree. Have you ever done that? They have those giant sequoias and the redwoods, and you can drive through one of them.
I know they did go to the redwood forest. I've never driven through the trees,
Oh, I want
but
to see that.
there have been literally 3 times that nature has taken my breath away. Literally taken my breath away. First was Lake Tahoe. I didn't even know it was coming, and I just sort of turned the corner and I saw it, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" I just didn't see it. It was surprising as I was driving
I've never
down the
seen
road.
Lake Tahoe.
Was it just gorgeous?
Yeah, I was. There's not a whole lot up there. There's several mountains. It's up in the border of California and shoot, I don't want to say it wrong, but it's sort of by Carson City. And I was making a trip over towards Northern California from Utah, and I just turned a corner, and all of a sudden I could just see the entire lake, and it just took my breath away. The second was the Grand Canyon.
Grand Canyon was good, yeah.
Because I thought it was going to be nothing. I've seen pictures, whatever.
It was going to be nothing.
I've seen it
That was
from
just a big hole in the desert.
yeah, I've seen it from airplanes, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
all right, it's a great
Yeah,
big hole. I get it.
Too.
Well, when you actually stand up next to it and you're looking down,
You're like,
and you
whoa.
see little tiny specks of birds that are flying
Yeah.
at the top of their height, way down there, you go, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I remember when I did that. Like I said, I was with my dad and my brothers, and we like went on some of the hike where you're like going down the little trails like along the walls, like down into the Grand Canyon. And I remember, and it's like you could step 4 feet to your left and drop thousands of feet.
Yeah,
Mm.
you die.
I remember thinking like, why is my dad letting me do this? What's wrong with you, Dad? Why would you let me do that? I mean, we were fine. Like, it probably wasn't as dangerous as it seemed to me. But I was like, we got to a point where like, all right, let's head back up because like we went down some and then we got to go back. I was like, no, let's keep going farther. Let's keep going farther. By the time we got to the top, I'm like, my dad was like, aren't you glad we turned around? I'm like, yes, Dad. Father knows best.
Well, the other thing was the redwoods. I was driving up there. My uncle owns a company that has, we've talked about it before, where he owns a balloon company.
Yeah.
He does a lot of parades, but he also does the ones on rooftops. And we had a
Like hot air balloon?
No, like
Or
the gorillas. You see
Yeah, like
on-
you have a big gorilla on top of a car
oh,
dealership.
those. Okay.
Yeah. And so we had a deal with Burger King where we were putting these Shrek balloons or these Darth Vaders up on top of the roof. We did this promotion a couple times, and I don't remember which one it was, but I was up in Northern California and it was really late, and I was trying to get all these stores done. I had to do 108 of these, and it was late at night. I was extremely tired because it was getting towards the end, and I'm just driving down this, and I thought that I had seen redwoods before because I saw all these huge trees up there, and I was like, man, those things really are impressive. Well, in the middle of the night as I'm driving, all of a sudden I sort of snap out of it. I'm like, what are these like gray things that are just in my peripheral vision? I'm seeing these like huge like blobs. I'm like, what in the world is that? And as one passed, I just sort of looked real quick, and it was so dark. There's not a light anywhere. I was like, there's no way that was a tree trunk. And I was like, there's no way. And I slowed down and I turned over and I pointed my headlights at one of these things, and you could see the entire outline of my headlights on the face of this trunk. And I was
Wow.
like, and I looked up and it just disappeared into blackness. And
Yeah,
I
that's
felt like I had
crazy.
just warped into some fairy tale world.
The hugest
like,
tree ever.
This is impossible. I mean, I was actually a little bit scared and intimidated by these trees because they're just.
Massive.
I mean, yeah, you're in a place you've never been.
It was pretty crazy.
So anyway, it's a
it
lot.
was
of,
Myrtle Creek. I just looked it up.
It's a lot of. You were way off. How did you get Myrtle Beach out of that?
I don't know.
I drove up to Santa Barbara once from LA, and it was just the most beautiful drive I've ever seen. It was just like epic.
Nice.
And it even had like fog and clouds, and it was just like, wow.
By the way, who is that talking? We didn't
I'm just
even
some
introduce
chick
you.
that strolled
We
into
didn't
your
introduce you.
garage.
This is Mandolin.
Hi.
She's filling in the estrogen factor since Michael's away.
Michael's gonna hate watching this
I
show,
know. Hey, that's
We
how
love
it goes.
you, Michael.
You're not here, you get the.
and he won't watch. Last time he wasn't on, he didn't watch. So
We miss you guys.
So we have to talk about last week, though. Before we get into the stories, which we always do. Last week we had our first guest, of note.
Of
And
Yeah, you don't count, man.
I'm not
Sorry.
saying Mandolin doesn't count.
Hey.
But I'm saying we had our first attempt at doing a guest that wasn't somebody who just sat in the studio with us. He called in from California. He did like a Skype call. He was part of the Hangouts, and we did our best.
Yeah, we had some technical issues, so if you watch that show, you'll see it. We lost a little bit of the time we would have liked to have had,
It was whack.
but
Just a little.
So that was our first attempt at doing that, and we learned a lot, I would say.
It's very interesting.
learned a lot about having a Skype guest. Do you mean?
First off,
That too.
we just lost our camera feed.
Right now?
Well, I guess it's back, I hope.
Yeah.
But first off, the technical issues was huge. We had him call in. He
I
called
mean, it was
in
really
right
just
at,
an audio thing on his end, right?
Yeah,
So,
but he still did call in once the show, right at the show time. So we had no backup plan. The other thing is, we thought we were live for about 15 minutes. Like we started at 8 o'clock, and then we realized we had zero backup plan. I mean, we had no show without Neil here. And we need to be better at improv than what we were.
I mean, I think we could. We were too we didn't. If we had gotten to a point where we're like, it's not going to happen, he's not going to come on, then I think we could have talked about something. But we were just fixated on figuring it out.
It was hard to follow. It was just so much information, like just back to back to back, and
Yeah, that was what I didn't like. Is obviously we had to let him say who he is and what his ideas are, but then we never really managed to get too much into a debate about it.
Right.
I wanted to debate, and I was writing stuff down, but then we never had a chance.
Yeah. And now here's the thing with that is there are people who spend hours long debating just a small portion of what he talked about. And so, I mean, we did have to get what he said. Otherwise, our questions almost, it almost didn't have a foundation. Because if you're a listener, you didn't know why we had this guy on in the first place. And then we just start pumping them full of questions. It would have been like, well, who is this guy?
Yeah, I felt a little limited by that too because I was like, well, I want to ask this question, but that alone's probably a half-hour discussion.
It
Yeah.
could have been like a 3-hour show if we all were able to ask him stuff and
Yeah.
debate.
So it probably would have been more than that if we all had just a free-for-all. But so the timeline, we're going to need to sort of isolate what we want to focus on
From that topic,
from that topic because it is just so huge.
I think the general theme, you know, he has his DVD, Who is Agent X, and I think that's probably the good thing to focus on, was because I think that's his most cut and dry kind of ideas that he has. It's that DVD, so probably I would
Focus
say
on that.
probably his formula for proving.
Well, I mean, but that's his wheelhouse. But it's our show, and so I want to know what do you think would be the most productive for? I mean,
I would say, like, kind of discuss with him beforehand. Say, okay, discuss some of your topics, and then give us a chance to debate. Or
I'm not sure what you're
He's-
asking. What are you
okay.
asking?
I was asking you, but I actually was really intending for the listener to chime in here, and that is, you know, what would you want to focus on? What do you think is the most important bit? I mean, we can go on a tangent about, you know, like the when he talked about who the disciples could have been on drugs or whatever, and all the different theories of that. But that's sort of a topic about something. I mean, it's still relevant, but it's almost like a rabbit trail. So if you have a limited amount of time, but I talked to him since then.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and he said that
On the phone or Skype or email or
email.
what? Okay.
But what he said was we should fix the technical stuff. Which
Yeah.
thank you, Neil.
That's the pot calling the kettle with no audio.
It's not really. I mean, he's not the one producing the show. He's just
Right,
calling in.
right.
And we really couldn't accommodate him.
Was it a problem his microphone on his computer wasn't
There
coming
was an
through?
issue with the microphone on his computer. But then when he did the call-in, the phone call really wasn't that clear either. I mean,
No,
for some
it
reason, we
wasn't.
couldn't get his sound that good. And
Yeah.
so what I suggested was, well, we are a live show. We do a live show, but we're not married to the idea of a live show. We could have him call in, and we could do a question and answer with Neil, and then just play it on Friday.
Right, and then we could
And
also
so-
edit out stuff that doesn't need to be in there.
We'll edit out all of his clever, so we'll make ourselves look really clever.
Yeah,
We're just-
exactly.
every single time.
What do you say to this, Neil? And then just do a video of him just going.
Yeah. You have a really good point, Dave.
he messaged me on
No.
Facebook and asked about the spiritual entities thing, and so I sent him my blogs, and he said they were interesting.
Okay. Cool.
We should just have him read a list of words. Like, can you just read through these words? We just need to record these. And it's like, he's like, let's see, you're right,
Always.
good, point. I
Never.
concede. Why am I reading these again? No, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. No, I actually agree with most of what he says. So I'm in the minority in this group here tonight, and so I don't want to. I'm torn because I want to play devil's advocate just because I just love
No
the
pun
topic.
intended.
So what the question is, and he's basically said in the interview last week, he doesn't debate evolution. Like he doesn't go into, okay, fine, you want to say that this fossil's on top of that fossil. Or, it's like I'm not debating that. He's basically just saying the basic question: is there a God or is it an accident? You know, both of them. Neither can be proven outright. He says you just have to make your most.
Well, he claims
reasonable-
to be able to prove that there is a God, though.
No, he didn't. He said he doesn't.
He doesn't what?
He said he can't prove it.
Well, I mean, his DVD is called Proving God.
Yeah, but he says you cannot absolutely prove God.
Yeah.
And his point was, I'm just going with what I think is the most reasonable answer.
Yeah, but I mean, that's where I had my biggest issues with what he was saying was, and I thought I was trying to think of a good way to explain this. And it's like, I think he had like 6 or 7 points or whatever that led to, if you add all this together, then you've got God. And to me, it's like you could tell me that 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 equals 21, that's true. But if the method by which you determined that 3 was 3 and the method that you determined that 5 was 5 is iffy, then you're not really proving anything. And I think some of the things along the way, he would say, well, we know because of this, and we know because of this, but it's like you're using opinions as basis for proving something, and you can't do that.
I have one comment that I mean, all of Neil's points were interesting and cool, but I mean, all of his theories and things based on whatever he accumulated, just like religion, they're all a collection of beliefs and tests and theories that people create to try to explain why we're here and what life is about. So I mean, that's why there's just so many different schools of thought, and then there's some that are called churches and religions and science and this and that. But I mean, life is kind of a mystery to be enjoyed.
So that was more or less, I think, what his point is he's admitting that.
Yeah, that was cool that he did admit that.
He's admitting that he's not trying to prove it with a scientific equation saying, ta-da, there's no other possible thing. But he says, I think it's a more reasonable conclusion, and here's why I think it's a more reasonable conclusion. Now, you can come to a different conclusion, and he's fine with it, but he'll say, but your statements and what you think is more reasonable takes just as much faith and lacks just as much science as what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And what he would say he's proving is that your step of faith actually uses less science than his basis for faith.
Yeah, the thing is, and I'm glad that he takes the approach of saying, well, this is what I think, you think what you think, I think what I think. And, I mean, most of my family and friends, they don't ever hear me talk much about religion because the way I see it, it's like...
You're a godless heathen, obviously.
That's kind of redundant. Doesn't heathen just mean... My point is...
Godless.
Yeah. My point is, you have a religious person sit down with a non-religious person, and they're going to have a talk, and it's like, religion is as passionate, if not more passionate than any other topic. So you've got passion, and then you've also got, the religious person's not going to convince a non-religious person to be religious, and vice versa. They're still going to have the same view at the end of it. So you're basically agreeing to have a passionate disagreement, which, what's that? It's just an argument. You're just agreeing to argue about something. It's like...
Sometimes if you have enough passion, though, you can rub off on other people. Like, they're like, well, they're just believable.
I've not found that to be the case with religion. I don't mean, maybe over time somebody might change their point of view, but I mean, in one conversation, I always felt like you're just gonna say, okay, we're gonna have an argument. It's like, what's the point of?
Well, if you go into any discussion with your mind made up, then you're right. If I go in and all I want to do is win the debate, then I'm going to either win the debate or lose the debate, basically from the perception of a third party, because my mind's made up.
Right.
But if I actually go in and I say, okay, here's what I believe, but I don't know everything, and so I want to see if I can learn, and you give somebody the platform to actually teach you something, then you might walk away with a improved or different perspective. Or you might hear it and go, okay, I don't know what I believe, but I definitely don't believe that. So right.
I think that's where it's different. Is like if you and I have a conversation about what's the best detergent to use to do our laundry, by the end of it, I might have convinced you that the one I'm using is better because it's not.
Look at my clothes.
That's more simple.
Debate, case closed. No, but I mean, it's not something that you're that passionate about. It's not something that's deeply ingrained in who you are. But so that's why I'm saying something like that. I think everybody is probably going to go into that discussion with their mind made up.
Okay. So the reason why I think people are passionate on both sides, and I said this last week, that is there are ramifications. If there is, hypothetically think this out with me, if we were an accident, completely random, whether or not there's an infinite amount of universes or whether this was the one time, but either way.
You've got 9 siblings. I think it's safe to say you were an accident.
Oh,
or you got 8 siblings. Sorry. I'm just kidding.
There's 9 of us.
Wow.
So But if there was, there are implications. And if there's not, and it was just a random thing, then my next question would be, where does what's the purpose? What's the point? I mean, what can you base life on, or any of your opinions, if we don't have a creator who had an intention for creating us? If we just evolved out of the muck, and we're just simply organisms working somehow in this atmosphere, what is it? What's to say one morality is better than another?
That could be debated for
Yeah,
quite a while.
you know, I mean, I
But
think
that's the implications. I mean, everything I do is
It's a good
based on
point.
God, in the understanding of, well, God created everything. He created me, and so it's His purpose, and that's why life has value, because it was intentionally created. So I know that if I were to kill somebody, I'm violating the sanctity of that life. I mean, I'm violating that person because they had a purpose, and I'm going in and acting as God and taking it away from them. But if I'm just an animal, well, who cares? I mean,
Animals kill
I'm not
too.
I'm not concerned with you.
I think you're pretty much saying what I also believe, as far as like I've always thought that like a lot of religions were founded with the, basically under the situation where thousands of years ago, it was pretty primitive people. They had tons and tons of questions and no answers for them. So I think in a lot of cases, instead of just saying I don't know, they came up with an answer. Maybe it's right, maybe it's not, but I mean, to me, it's like I think one of the biggest flaws with humans is the inability to just say I don't know. Chances are, none of us know. I mean,
You don't know that.
know what? Oh yeah. No, but I mean, you really break it down. We're a sack of meat and bones and gooey stuff on a speck of a planet, on a speck of a solar system, and a speck of a star system, and a speck of a galaxy, and a speck of a speck. We're so insanely tiny, we literally can't comprehend it. So
That's true. But we have a purpose.
so the point is, it's like how could we possibly think that we have it all figured out? It's probably something, whatever the answer is, it's probably something that we'll never be able to understand. It's like if we were to show an ant an app on your iPhone and say, look, you hold it up to the sky and it shows you the constellations of the stars. It's like the ant is going to know what a constellation is. It's not going to know what a star is. It's not going to know what your iPhone is. It's not going to know what an app is. It's not going to know what you are. It can't even fathom the existence of those things. Just like whatever the actual truth is, we probably can't either. It's probably so beyond us that
That's true. Like our minds are
So,
just not capable.
we're just too primitive, and I think we give ourselves way too much credit. And I think the idea that we have it all figured out, whether a book called the Holy Bible, or we have it all figured out in the sense that there is nothing else out there, and we were just something that happened. I think either way is both just insanely arrogant of humans to have that thought that we have it all figured out in one way or another. That's why when you ask me what I believe, it's like it's not really a short answer, because it's like, I mean, I have some like, well, I don't think this, and I sort of think that, and I think there is probably something way beyond us, but we'll never know what it is. But just as the ant will never know what an app on an iPhone is, it's just too far beyond us.
Okay. So that would be more or less my point, is wouldn't the most enlightened person in that scenario free themselves of any kind of obligation whatsoever? Do whatever you want to do. There's no limits. I mean, there's no
Right.
That is a true
if
possibility.
it's stealing from someone else, it doesn't matter. They don't know why they got stolen from. I just saw it. I wanted it, so I took it. And there's really no ramifications. I mean, I can do what I want. I'm never going to be affected by that guy's loss. So why should I try to put myself in their shoes? Why should I see some sort
You
of
don't
value?
know that. I mean, you could get prosecuted or
Well, I mean, I
caught,
can
or
tell you that, because
you could get shot.
Okay.
Because I don't believe if I kill somebody, I don't believe that I'm gonna go to some place called hell and burn for all of eternity or whatever.
Right.
But at the same time, the idea of doing that is just
Well, you don't benefit from
no.
that.
I would
So-
never do it. It's, if I steal something from somebody, it's like I feel wrong. It doesn't feel right.
Okay.
So it's like I think it is still inherently built into what we are.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think that that's put there by some higher power.
And
But
so,
I think it's just part of.
so you say it's not necessarily God, but there is some sort of a moral. There is a right and a wrong.
Sure, and it may just be a societal thing. It may just be that it might actually, it might in a way go back to some sort of religious belief, because if we know as people, like we're taught growing up, whether you're taught to be religious or not, you are taught that stealing is wrong, don't hurt other people, so on and so forth. And that may be all going back far enough that whole society, what we call civilized society, civilization, it may be founded by more of a religious belief. So in a way, somebody who's not religious today, may have some values that, if you go back far enough, were sort of founded by religious beliefs.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, nothing that was taught in my grandparents' era or my great-grandparents, or go back as far as you want, seems to really affect me. And it would be weird. It doesn't seem reasonable that I would feel an internal struggle based on something that happened generations ago. You know what I mean? If you grow up in a family that's completely not religious, you still have something inside you that says, I shouldn't steal that. It's not mine.
Right.
I wouldn't want it to be taken from me, so I shouldn't take it from them.
Well, you say that what your grandparents did don't affect you. I'm talking about the very basic fundamentals, like going back way past your grandparents,
Right.
from when
Like
humans exist.
instincts?
It's like you walk up and punch somebody. It's like,
They're going to punch
like,
you back.
well, I mean, if I walked up and punched you, Mandel would be like, "Whoa, that was messed up." Like you just hit another person. It's like I'm talking about those deep fundamentals, like just of what we consider
Well, it seems
civilized
like
behavior.
We're born with a conscience of some sort, or like our instincts, or our inner guide.
Yeah, that sense of justice is violated when we see. If you saw Dennis punch me, your sense of justice would be violated, and that's really the premise of all the stories that we had, and it seems like the news is overrun with it, where somebody says something, has an opinion, and they are getting attacked for that opinion. They're getting their shows canceled.
Well,
they're getting.
Stuff is so viral now, and it's so out there with everything being recorded and blasted out on networking, social media. So it's like someone had told me once, a millionaire conference I went to, they said you're always on air. So it's almost like nowadays you literally have to watch what you say, watch what you do.
Why?
because
Because people won't like it.
I mean, it's really what you put out into the universe, I guess.
And I think that's a good way to put it, because people won't like it. I think with the spread of social media and everything being taped, and it's like anybody does something, the whole
Secret
world can
cell
know
phone
about it
videos.
10 minutes later. But I think with that, I think that's kind of what's so greatly blurred the line between what's politically correct and what's somebody just spouting their mouth. I understand, we talked before about Phil Robertson and his views and everything, and it's like, I don't agree with him, but I certainly respect his right to have his belief. It's like, if he says something I don't like, then it's like, okay, I don't like it, but I mean, that doesn't mean you can't say it. And I think we're getting to that point now where it's like, people don't really think about, well, we don't like what they said, but they can say it. We just go straight to, they can't say that.
Well, and you say punish that person. We had the guy who owns the Clippers, got illegally recorded in his house, said some terrible, terrible things, really showed the world who he was with that tape, and now people are like, he can't own the Clippers, and his family can't own it, and just burn him.
Yeah.
You know, you've got Phil Robertson we had already gone over that. He said he didn't understand gay people. He's like, women have more to offer. I don't get it. Okay. He's a backwoods pastor. And so that's he didn't say, you shouldn't do this or that. He's like, I don't get it. That doesn't make any sense. You got, we got a few stories. We'll just run through this real quick. New movie coming out called Mom's Night Out. Okay. Is getting absolutely hammered in the media because of
Is this an independent film or something? I never heard of it.
No, it's not independent. This has the guy who played Rudy, Sean Austin.
It's like a big
Sean
film.
Astin. Yeah, it's got Patricia Heaton from Everybody Loves Raymond.
Have you seen
Kind
it?
of C-listers, but
A-list Patricia Heaton.
Are you kidding me? Or Rudy? He finally got another part after 25 years ago, or whenever that movie was
Yeah,
made.
it's one of the only movies that made me cry. Just days after Mom's Night Out, director John Irwin decried critics' scathing reviews of his family-friendly comedy. Faith-driven consumer and innovative research initiative that gauges interest on values-motivated consumer behavior has launched a campaign lambasting elitist movie critics. All right, I don't care about any of that. But basically, they're bashing this because it puts mothers on a pedestal in motherhood and not, they say it hurts the feminist, independent women sort of movement with its just basic premise. Now, here's the thing. Heaven is for real. Noah, that one movie, the documentary that Ben Stein came out with. Remember that?
Yeah, I forget what that was called.
That's dating a little bit, but these faith movies, these movies based on faith, are making tons of money. There's another one coming out called Return to the Hiding Place.
Yeah, they'll keep making more. Anytime they hit on something that
the Courageous,
starts doing well,
Courageous. There's a whole bunch of them, and so look, there's a market for it. Millions of Americans want to see it,
Controversy
and so
sells.
someone makes it. And it's not even. I mean, but why is it a controversy? And that's. I mean, that's one
Everything
example.
could be a controversy because you got people who are always going to be divided in their opinions on all different spectrums.
Okay.
So.
Boston Marathon bomber. Oh, do you want to say something else?
I was just going to say, I take back what I said about Sean Astin. He's got quite the extensive IMDb in the last few years.
Sean's done a lot, including Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I totally forgot about Lord of the Rings. Darn it!
Let's
Kind of a
not
big
call
one.
We'll edit that out. We'll edit it out.
Samwise Gamgee quite a B-lister yet.
Samwise Gamgee.
Anyway, Boston bomber.
Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, I think is how you say it.
No, that guy died. This is
No, he did. No, Tamerlan died.
Oh, Tamerlan died?
Yeah. Dzhokhar is the one who's alive.
Okay, and maybe it's the person who he was texting. Dias Kaderbayev. Texted Tsarnaev shortly after photos of he was on the news. And so basically they brought his text message out. And he was kind of joking around with his friend. Hey, maybe you shouldn't text me. LOL.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing about that. Like he was trying to play it off kind of like, oh yeah, I do look like that guy. Huh? Better not text me.
Oh really? Well, there was some controversy over the fact that he was just joking around, and it's like, how could he be joking around at?
Yeah, that was. I remember. Yeah, it was like, wow, they're just texting and going on about their business, going to the gas station, whatever. Like after they just blew up people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
well,
I mean,
but they didn't think what they were doing was wrong. In fact, they thought what they were doing was right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And if there is, I don't know where you get. What are you using to attack somebody else's morals if our morals only came from an entrenched training?
What are you using to attack somebody else's morals?
Meaning their culture goes back longer
You mean it was to
than
say
ours.
that we're right and they're wrong?
Yeah, the Middle Eastern culture and the Islamic faith goes back farther than the United States and this American freedom culture ever by thousands of years. So where do we get off getting mad about him texting? I'm not saying getting mad for blowing people up. But what is, and I'm mad about it too. I mean, something in me goes, I'm not trying to defend the guy. I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Mm-hmm.
what is it? Why does the fact he's joking around doesn't care about what he's done violate our sense of conscience? If his history goes back further than ours, can't we intellectually come to the conclusion that, well, what he did was right for him?
Yeah,
I can't
I
come
mean,
to that, but that's because I believe in God.
I guess my response would be anything that that prevents somebody else from living the way they want to live and their freedom,
Good point.
like killing them, for instance,
Yep.
is wrong. But maybe that's just what I've been agreeing with.
And I want to make it clear in case my devil's advocacy came across at all.
Yeah, no, I get your point.
I at this point in my life, I'm for the death penalty, and I'm for him getting the death penalty for what he did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm not in any way not offended by him joking around.
Right, you're just making a point of where does that feeling come
that's
from?
more. I'm trying to take a step back and say what is that violating for you, and a realization that his violent religious affiliation goes back a lot further than America's freedom, do what you want. You know, our free. In the culture that we've been trained in.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
As a godless, we're just independent. We have our own free will. We do whatever we want.
I mean, you could make the point that humans our civility evolves, and as time goes on, we learn to, be more. I don't know the word for it besides civilized, but I mean, take care of each other and not kill each other and try to be more coexisting.
So, but if our morality came from something that was at our core from generations ago, wouldn't it evolve less as we get enlightened, but instead it's evolving more? Wouldn't we become more independent? Wouldn't we become more violent? If we're rejecting this, oh man, the God of the thunder and the sky and the lightning will be mad at us if we, and they just came up with an explanation for the sake of giving some sort of something.
I still think a lot of people have their gut intuition that things are wrong versus right.
Yeah.
So you're saying,
and some is a little more rusty than others, and depending on how they were raised. If their parents were godless heathens, as you like to say.
Well, I was just talking in hypothetical.
Right.
But basically, what you're saying is, if we allow religion to fade away, then morality will go with it, and will de-evolve as a species.
Possible.
The only way we can come to an agreement on any of these topics is if we can have some sort of a moral center point that we can both agree on. All three of us can agree that Dennis should not come across here and punch me for what I'm saying, even though he's fat and he's ugly. No, I'm just kidding.
If I didn't have these headphones on, so help me.
So everybody can agree to that, and so we've got that as a moral. So we know that would be very odd if that happened. And we could point the finger and say, Dennis, that was not really called for, especially in the middle of a show.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if it's the age that we're moving into or what it is, but I certainly do not associate religious belief with morality. I mean, some of the most moral people I know are atheists, and they wouldn't dare walk away from their table at a restaurant noticing that the waitress forgot to put something on there, and then at the same time I know some people call themselves Christians who do things that are, very morally questionable. So it's I don't necessarily think that those things go hand in hand.
They can't.
Well,
yeah, they can and they can't, which means that they don't. I mean,
I wasn't assigning it to a religion.
It's like everybody's individual journey.
You mean the question of, is there's a God, to me informs my morality. Now, it's because of that I can say, well, I believe that because I have that, I can take it to the next step and I can say, this is what God wants. Now, if somebody else were to say, I don't believe in your God, so that's not necessary, you can't say that's what he wants, that's fine. But I want to know, if you're going to tell me I'm doing something wrong, what are you basing that on? I can tell you what I'm basing it on, but you can't tell me where yours comes from. Here's another case in point, just like the Ducks Dynasty guy who said his opinion and was thrown off A&E for about 10 minutes until they realized that he was more popular than
Yeah.
the old. He made
started rubbing their fingers together and realized that,
well, all the family would have said, yeah, that's our dad. So if he goes, we're just going to call it quits.
Yeah. I mean, plus by that point they'd already had 6 seasons or 5 seasons, so I could see it falling off.
Anyway. And the real god in that equation for everybody who was involved was money.
Yeah.
And so the people who had kicked him off did it because they were afraid of losing money.
Right. They're afraid of the backlash from not being politically correct.
Yep. Then when they realized that the backlash was going to be worse for kicking him off the show than for not, they brought him back on and kind of swept it under the rug. And everybody who tried to kick him off was like, darn it. I mean, you just lost one. Here's one. They did the draft. This guy who's the first openly gay NFL player got drafted in the 7th round.
Michael Sam.
And on ESPN during the draft, they showed him and he cried. And, he started kissing his boyfriend in celebration. And then they were like having a party and shoving cake in each other's mouths and stuff like that.
Shoving what?
Cake.
Okay.
This was on TV?
This was on ESPN Sports. So
it seems like they do this stuff for
they're
entertainment
trying to
value.
make news, and ESPN kept going back to it. And so a lot of people are like, good Lord. I mean, come on. I'm here watching the draft. I don't need to see this. It's annoying.
Controversy.
I don't mind them showing it once, but it's like it's the same thing that they wouldn't show a guy kissing his girlfriend over and over and over.
And
so it's like, why are you doing that?
It's
It's like you.
Who shoves cake in each other's mouth when you get a job? I mean,
It's
that's
like
a
the
weird.
same thing as the whole Kardashian
But-
thing. They're like
They wouldn't
capitalizing.
have made the same point about it if it was just
They're capitalizing on
hetero
the drama.
relationship.
So, the Miami Dolphins safety Don Jones was fined because he sent a tweet out to his followers, tweet in the Twitter universe, OMG, and then in a separate tweet, horrible. So,
Seems like there's a lot of
so
people.
there was there was more than 7 letters, but it was 10 letters, and he got fined. They didn't say how much, but he's not allowed to play in the NFL until he goes in for like rehabilitation training class of sensitivity or whatever. And the Miami Dolphins came out and apologized, and
Just because he said horrible.
OMG, so horrible. Look at.
But no one really knew it was related. To
That's
that.
the thing. For one, they're assuming what it was about, which agree. I mean, I would probably put
Let's
money
not-
on that's what it was
Let's
about
not
too.
play naive,
But
because he apologized for it.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I mean, if we're not playing naive,
No.
we can probably deduce that is what it was about. But
So what?
it's like, it's so weird that people go to rehab for being an a-hole these days. It's like,
You criticize somebody on Twitter, and you get fined by the NFL, and you're not allowed to play until. If I was on the Miami Dolphins, I wish the entire team, when he got fined, had all tweeted OMG and then followed up horrible.
yeah. I mean,
It's like you're
in
gonna.
the defense of the NFL,
Well-
they do have a strict code of conduct that they live by.
but
So
that's okay.
that they have to follow. It's part of their being employees, basically.
But if the whole team did it, they wouldn't have suspended the entire Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, you're true.
There's
That's
way too much
true.
money involved. And that is not. He's not even commenting on Michael Sam necessarily. He's commenting on 2 guys shoving cake in each other's faces on ESPN.
I didn't even see that.
I mean,
Wait. What kind of cake was it?
It's not relevant. I'm just kidding. I think it was a wedding cake, probably.
If it
They're
was
probably trying to
was red velvet, then he probably just didn't like red velvet cake. He was like, OMG, that stuff's horrible.
But so here we'll go back to our.
I'm not saying I agree with him. I like red velvet cake.
But what is what was violated by him tweeting those 2 tweets?
Can we have a cake fight?
Sure.
That is an interesting point
this
because
is the moral principle. What's the moral principle behind it?
it is, even though we're not going to play naive and we can probably say what it was, the reason he's being fined and suspended is because of this strict written code of conduct. So if you're going by strict written things and explicit things,
Mhm.
then it seems weird to fine and suspend something on something implicit, because it's like either you're going fully by the book, by what's written down, or you're going by your gut and whatever. If you're going by your gut, then it's like, okay, we don't necessarily have to go by this strict code of conduct. But if you're going by the rules, then it's like, well, he didn't technically say, you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay, but here's the thing: the NFL does not have that standard.
What?
Have
Code of
you ever-
conduct?
They do not have that standard that if somebody writes OMG and horrible, that they would get
Right,
fined out.
that's exactly
That
my
is
point.
not the code of conduct violation.
Right, that's my point.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying technically he did. I was
No. That's what my point is. They're implying something by what he said, but then they're using the explicit rules to so it's like, if you're going to use your own judgment to determine what he said, then you could also use your own judgment to determine the punishment.
Well,
So it's kind of double
I
standard.
think that the one that who lost in that, who had something taken from them, who was the one who, I mean, it seems inconsistent that
It is.
that we would suspend this guy and fine him presumably thousands of dollars. It wasn't a $50 fine.
Yeah.
This was something thousands.
You don't
of
hear
dollars.
many NFL fines that are under like 10
No.
grand.
What
And
if
so-
maybe someone didn't like him and they just jumped on that any excuse to like
Oh no!
defame
Uh,
him?
Miami Dolphins is protecting themselves just like A&E was with Phil Robertson.
Yeah.
This is just a big political stage, and
To make a
I'm
point.
okay with somebody having an opinion. I'm okay with people being so mad at him and saying he should be fined. But what the discussion here is, what does that come from? What is the sense of justice? What is the moral principle underneath? You feel it, and I'm asking you to put your finger on where does it come from that it's so wrong for him to say something critical of somebody else on Twitter.
Well, it wasn't just someone else. It was like a gay scenario, and I think.
Why is that different?
Well, because what I was saying before with that other scenario we talked about on one of your shows, like I think we're moving more towards being more gay friendly as a nation. It's just coming along that way, and so this is one of those incidences that's kind of reinforcing that
So
path, I guess.
Does that reinforce it? Because I think, and this is just a prediction, you heard it here first, I think that the pendulum is actually going to swing the other way.
Yeah.
And I'm actually more scared of that.
What do you mean by the other way?
Where people will overcompensate for the
It's
emphasis on political correctness. People will be like, okay, everybody got so up in arms about like was trying to correct everybody's behavior that we're just going to let everybody do whatever they want.
What I think is going to be the next thing is that you can't correct anyone for anything.
Yeah.
And because we're so desperate, and I believe it's because we've taken God out of our culture, and we don't believe that we do believe that we are our own gods and we can do whatever we want. That we're so desperate for a moral standard that everything political goes back to Hitler's Germany. It's just like what Hitler did in Germany. Everything goes back to the Nazis. Everything goes back to that because the whole world can agree that that was wrong. And so if you can tie it to that, then you can win the argument because you've got some center point. And then we've gotten to the point now where we say, oh, really? If you're going to criticize somebody for being gay, then you're wrong and you're a hater and you're a homophobe. And so anything that goes anywhere close, they tie it to that and they can automatically win the argument. And the same with racism. We know racism is wrong because we used to have slaves, and as a country we've evolved from that, and we say that was wrong, and we don't ever want to do that again. And so now, if you have anything that is in opposition, immigration, welfare, you vote against the president, everything automatically goes to a race issue because if you can tie your point to being for not racist, then you'll win the argument. And I don't think those are. I mean, I think we're being misled.
So wait, how are
cases,
you?
but-
if you're going to have more and more examples that people agree are wrong that people can refer to, then how are you saying that it would make us to where we can't criticize anybody for anything? It seems like we'd be criticizing everybody for everything,
Yeah.
more and more and more so.
But I think that I think those aren't real things to. I think there is a moral code behind those things, those gross violations, and we haven't been able to identify that because we've taken God out of the equation, is my opinion. But what I'm saying is what is the moral code we can all agree on? That's what we're desperate for. And so these things we're using are just straw, and they're going to wear out. And so I think, and this is just my prediction, I may be way off. Maybe you're right. Maybe you won't be able to open your mouth in the future without getting put in jail, and we'll all be there. But I think what's going to happen is people like me, who just tend to want to say things. I want to say what's in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a hard time imagining people calling me a racist or calling me, a homophobe. That's weird. I'm not scared of them. But I can say I don't want to see two guys shoving cake in their face because that's not appealing to me. I don't like it. If I see guys kissing each other, I don't think it's beautiful. You may think it's beautiful. I don't. So I don't want to watch it over and over again. But that doesn't make me hate them or scared of them. It's just a personal opinion. But I'll get thrown out of the NFL if I say that. I'll get thrown out of. You mean you lose your job nowadays? And it's like the pendulum's going to swing back, in the society I think is going to go, no, you piss off. I'm not a racist. I'm not a homo. You want to I'm going to say the most racist things.
So everybody will get fed up with the hypersensitivity, and it'll just be like, all right.
And then people will say the people who are racists and the people who really do hate and people who really have a sick agenda will have a platform because all the accusations against the innocent have worn out. And so now people with really scary views, people who are really anti-Semitic and hate Jewish people, will be able to come up and say something. And we want to call them a racist, but we wore that accusation out on all the false accusations in this time.
Yeah.
We're going to want to call them...
Maybe it just depends on how much of a public figure, how much stance somebody has in society.
Probably right.
Because then they're more attacked because they're more noticed, and because of that, if they hold a higher position, they're higher paid. These corporations want to protect themselves, so they're gonna remove that problem by removing that person that caused the problem. Because it's like a bigger picture here. Whereas someone who low on the totem pole, who's gonna really care what they say unless it has a huge scope that goes across the nation or world or something.
So anyway, that's my more or less the reason why I'm fascinated by Neil's position, is because to me it informs my sense of morality. And every single thing we discuss, everything, whether it's a money issue, whether it's gay things, whether it's racial things, whether any abortion, any of the controversial stuff, or even if it's somebody tubing a movie that came out, or even if it's somebody getting fined in the NFL. Whatever it is, it comes down to a moral principle has been violated. And if you can't identify what your moral principle is based on, then I don't know. I wouldn't know how to live like that. I would just be. I think I would be a little bit overwhelmed with how do I know anything. What?
That's. You feel that way because you're not in that position, so
right.
You don't know.
That's
you
right.
don't know what it feel like, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But it's you just kind of know. And it's like you're right. I could say that punching you in the face is bad, but I don't know that I could necessarily point a specific example of why it's bad. It's like, well, it feels bad. I know it's bad.
So if you can't, then why would anybody listen to somebody who cannot explain why they feel the way they feel? They just do. Does that make sense? That's
I think it's because people are a kind of a product of their environment, how they're raised. Just like with the whole punching thing. The street kids who do that whole punch-out game where they just find a stranger and knock them out, and they think it's fun and funny. It's a game to them. they have a completely different moral compass, obviously. They don't give a crap whether that person dies or their jaw is broken and they have thousands, millions of dollars of damages or whatever. They have a completely different view.
But if it's only your feeling inside of you that says what they're doing is wrong, then why should they stop?
I think that goes back a little bit to what I was saying about how people, a lot of people are not okay with just saying I don't know. It's like you know, basically what you're describing is you're not okay with somebody just being able to say I don't know why that's wrong. And I think that's a big part of the foundation of religions. People are not okay with just saying I don't know, even though we may never know, truthfully. But people are not okay with just saying I don't know where we came from or why we're here or where we go when we die. So it's like I need an answer to that. So it's like you may not have the right answer, but you know you'll have an answer. So it's like if somebody who's religious, they're happy that they have the answer of, well, I know that it's wrong to go kill somebody because of their religion. Whereas somebody who's not religious, you know, maybe they'll just say, I don't know why I know that it's wrong to do that. But a lot of people are not okay with just saying, I don't know. Personally, I am. I think that, like I said, I don't know where the universe came from or what's beyond humans or what's beyond, you know, our universe or whatever. I don't think we'll ever know. We're too primitive. We're too small.
I think it's like the majority rules with moral standards, because even studies of like flocks of birds that fly, they've studied lots of different flocks, and it's the majority rules of the birds who decide to fly in a certain direction. So it's kind of like human morality and laws, and you know, the majority rules. That's why they kind of created voting, or at least the concept of it, whether or not who controls that. But you know, it's like majority rules over what's right, what's wrong, what's illegal, what's not, kind of stuff. I don't know.
Well, I think it would be completely consistent to say, well, I don't know. You know, I don't know. But it's not consistent because you actually do know, you just don't know why you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
there's an element of I don't know.
Because if you and I were to go out and somebody were to, you know, I mean, come up and start wailing on me for some reason, you would do something about it.
Right. I'm not saying that.
You wouldn't have a question of whether or not you should or not.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I don't know if something's wrong or right. I know if something's wrong or right. I just don't know why I know that.
Okay.
What makes it wrong or right?
Right. I mean, I think it's just, in my particular case, like in people living in our age today, I think, you know, you basically say, I know that it's wrong because that's how you're brought up. You know, you're brought up with, don't do this, you're not supposed to do that, this is wrong, this is right, yada, yada, yada. You could go back ages and ages, and I don't know where that was originally founded, but...
So, before we wrap this show up, I did want to talk about Mexico.
Mexico.
It won't take a long time, but
street tacos?
Oh,
are you talking about street tacos?
The greatest food in the world.
They really are.
No,
they're really good.
But
tortillas.
Tortillas.
Sopapillas or something.
It's not the tortillas.
Yeah, it's not the tortilla that's
the
making it good.
asada.
Yes,
Well,
the asada and the
Spanish
cilantro and
rice.
the onions.
Well,
We're spoiled
You should
here.
come to that food truck thing yesterday. I had some good tacos.
So when I lived in California, I dated this girl who lives in Tijuana, and she sent me a message on Facebook the other day, and she said Tijuana is burning with a sad face, and there's tons of fires right now in San Diego, and we don't ever hear the Tijuana news because
This was recent, right?
this is right now.
Yeah, I saw.
like,
Okay.
as we're speaking, and
I
that's
saw
why
that,
I wanted
okay.
to talk about it. So the fire department in Tijuana has recently discovered that more than half of the fire hydrants in the cities don't work.
It's like when you need them, you don't have them.
Yeah, because they've got valuable metals in the fire hydrant, and thieves have gone in and stolen the copper and stolen.
Maybe it
valuable
was meant to
stuff.
be. Maybe those thieves' houses are going to burn down because they stole the metal out
Well,
of
it
it.
really stinks to
You
try
know.
and build an infrastructure when
Yeah,
people are
yeah.
just destroying.
Yeah, they're
it.
probably not ruining the fire hydrants in front of their house.
Yeah,
It's
no,
like,
but
I'm going to go down the block and break that one.
they may be. So
Well, if people don't have respect for the things that are there for them, then it's like, it can't be there to help them when they need it.
and another, what's that?
I was going to say, did the person who lived in Tijuana tell you the correct way to pronounce it? We always say Tijuana.
And it's Tijuana.
Tijuana. It's like just there's no it's just T-I-J,
Well,
but we want to say like T-I-A-J, kind of Tijuana.
well,
It's really just Tijuana.
I always call her Gloria, but her actual name is Gloria.
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 Yeah.
So anyway, if you, not you, obviously, Dennis, but if you would pray for the people in Tijuana, especially the people that I know, they're the most important people in Tijuana. At least that's what
Bad place for fire hydrants to not work.
It really is right now.
I mean, all of the West Coast is like on fire.
Another story of Tijuana. I did it again.
No, it's fine. It's the American way of saying it. So
this guy.
I do hate it when people. Sorry, I do hate it when people say like Chipotle or how's the lady at work? She says Chipotle. I'm like, just read the word. It's Chipotle.
Yeah, there's a Taco Bell commercial that's like.
Chipotle.
No, the Taco Bell commercial on the radio is like, and Party Moss.
Oh yeah.
It's like Moss. Party Moss.
It's funny though. I live on Blanco Road, which really it's Blanco Road.
Yeah.
But if anybody were to say, oh yeah, you go take a ride on Blanco Road, you'd be like, it's Blanco Road, idiot.
It's like in New York they have Houston Street.
Yeah.
It's like, really, there's a major city and it's not named Houston, but it's spelled the same way. But so there is a Marine right now, Andrew Tamorisi, Sergeant Andrew Tamorisi, called 911 because he's from Florida, served multiple tours. He's a Marine, so he did multiple tours. He survived multiple IED blasts, and he went to San Diego to be treated for PTSD.
I know, even worse, he's already got PTSD and he's dealing with this.
And so he's driving down there. He's only been there for 10 days. Checked himself in. He's driving down there. He hadn't unpacked. He hadn't found a place to live yet. So all his stuff is in his truck. Everything he owns. And he wanders accidentally into Mexico. Like he got to the place where, oh no, I'm at the Mexico border crossing, and he doesn't.
Wandered like he was driving. Right?
He's driving in his truck with all his stuff. And he calls 911 because he's got guns. He's a Marine. He's got 3 guns that are legally registered with our country, and he couldn't turn around. He's like, so I'm driving. I accidentally took a wrong turn, and all of a sudden I'm at the Mexico border crossing.
Couldn't he have just stopped and not crossed? I mean, obviously you're going to block traffic and everything, but I mean,
he probably had no idea what he was getting himself into.
Yeah.
He couldn't find a reasonable turnaround. He was there, and he's like, okay, how do I get through this?
Yeah, the way they have them, like these bridges, sometimes there's just like one way and big old cement dividers, and you have absolutely no idea what you're doing. You accidentally go that way.
You can get stuck in that.
How you have nowhere to turn around. I've been down at the borders.
So here is his 911 call that just came out yesterday.
The time, 23:30.
911 emergency.
Hi, I'm having a little bit of an emergency here.
What's going on?
Hello, you here?
Yeah, I'm here. What is the address of the emergency?
Okay, I'm at the border of Mexico right now. My problem is I crossed the border by accident, and I have 3 guns in my truck, and they're trying to take my guns from me.
So you're in Mexico?
Yeah.
There's nothing I can help you with then, sir. I do apologize. You're not on American soil anymore. I can't really help you.
It sucks.
I don't know if I'm really on the. I'm not sure if I crossed. Yeah, I guess.
Well, is it Mexican authorities that are talking to you, or is it U.S. that you're in Mexico?
So they have the right to just take my guns.
Well, there's a huge sign that says it is illegal to enter Mexico with guns when you're driving down the 805 and the 5 freeways.
Okay.
Okay, so there are warning signs that do state that as you're driving down the freeway before you enter Mexico.
Yeah, I was hoping that there would be a turnaround point, but there never was.
There's a turnaround point before you get across the border.
That's
Yeah,
not
but not
helpful now.
where I was. There was no turnaround point.
Well, then that means you were way far down then if you already passed it, if you didn't see the turnaround point.
Okay, no. I used to cross there all the time. He was at San Ysidro, which is the place, that is the border crossing that I always crossed. And I used to go there almost every weekend, at least 2 weekends a month. And it is very easy to wander into Mexico because you're on the 5 freeway.
Yeah, I've been there too.
And the freeway itself is what runs into...
Yeah, it goes just you keep going south
Yes.
on the 5, you're going to be in Mexico.
And so if you're already at one of those last exits and you turn onto the freeway, now there is an exit that's last exit in the United States, but imagine if you think you're going north, you head over to the fast lane, and all of a sudden you're like, oh shoot, I mean you've missed the last exit, and you've got the tolls, and you think, well, I could probably just explain this. I mean, there's got to be a way.
Yeah. I hate it what that lady was doing. I hate it when it's like, oh man,
Just
I just
cut
burnt
you
the
off.
crap out of my hand when I picked up that hot pan. Well, you shouldn't have. Yeah, don't do that. You don't pick up the. It's like, it's already a little late to be. It's like, well, there was a sign, and you shouldn't have. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, can you help me now?
Yeah.
It's a rough-
I mean, we've all run into that before.
Yeah.
I was at the airport last week, and I accidentally got into the long-term parking instead of
You're
the
like,
rental car
3 of my
return.
guns with me.
And it looks, I almost filmed it because it shows, all right, exit here, rental car return, and I ended up in the parking lot. So there was an information booth, and I went to it. I said, listen, I'm need to get to the rental car place. I need to get out of this parking lot. It's huge, Nashville Airport. And the lady's like, oh, you should not have come in here.
Oh, thank you
Well,
for that.
Really?
Thanks.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
no
Thank you.
crap,
I'm
yeah.
like, I realize that. I just need to get out. She's like, here's the thing. There's a giant sign for the rental car return right where you came in to keep going straight. I'm like,
They love to tell you why you're wrong, right?
So
Like,
Rub-
yeah,
rub it
we're-
in, rub it in.
I've already established that I'm wrong.
well, unfortunately, the message here is this guy, not only he was afraid his guns were going to get taken away, and I think I got to cut the 911 caller a little break because he didn't say, I'm in the military and they're about to put me in jail. He said,
Yeah.
I'm actually accidentally at the wrong border and they want to take my guns away. So she's
Yeah.
like, yeah, sorry. That's a $1,200 mistake or a $3,000 mistake, however much those 3 guns cost. But this is a decorated war hero, and they arrested him. And they put him in general population prison in Mexico. And then, after 2 days, he escaped over this wall because he's like, the guy's an American. He's a fighter. He's like, so he tried to escape from prison. He
So
actually
he got
out
away? He's free now?
temporarily, and they caught him again, and they
Oh.
put him in solitary confinement and had him handcuffed in shackles to a bed.
Maximum
for the-
security
In
prison.
maximum no, that was solitary confinement for 30
It's like
days.
just getting worse.
30 days. Then they've moved him now to
Oh,
a
now they
maximum security prison 41 miles outside of Tijuana, and he's facing between 7 and
6 and 21 years in a
Oh,
Mexican prison for
no.
carrying registered AR-15, 45 caliber pistol, and 12 gauge
That's
pump
horrible.
shotgun.
Yeah, now I mean obviously if he knew this, he'd have put it in reverse and gone backwards on the freeway.
Oh yeah, I would
I
have
mean,
Yeah,
driven
I
over
would've-
everything.
I would have
Yeah.
done that too.
I would have
obviously.
left my truck there if it
Right.
was going to be in that.
Getting an American ticket by a cop would be way better than what he's going through now.
But I actually can vouch because I have gone into Mexico by accident before.
Are you telling me, David Thompson,
I didn't
are you telling me that you went into Mexico without all intent and proper documentation? Is that what you're that doesn't sound like you.
at the time when I accidentally drove into Mexico, no, I'm saying only one time did I accidentally drive in there. Because I was planning on parking and walking across because the line to get back is sometimes up
Oh,
to
yeah.
4 hours long.
But if you drive back, then you can sit in the line and they can sell you Scarface blankets and ceramic turtles and chiclets and stuff.
So I was going down into the park and I actually ended up going too far, and I'm like, well, I'm in Mexico now, I may as well drive. So at that time, and I had my documentation. So no, I did not.
Okay. I find it hard to believe that Thompson
I
would
would never.
do anything without proper documentation.
There were 2 other times that I did go into
Oh.
Mexico without proper documentation, but
Ew.
that was not on accident. I actually intentionally
I wonder if anybody ever goes there just to shop at the border.
This is another thing that I learned when, and we got to wrap this thing up, but this is one thing I learned because I'm a Canadian. My entire family, extended family, is in Canada. My immediate family was on the Michigan side. But I grew up just like a border kid, going back and forth all the time. We were in Windsor all the time, going back and forth for the weekend to see grandparents, aunts, uncles, that type of thing.
To do drugs and drink.
Yeah, no.
Going to Canada and get some booze.
So we crossed many times, with all the kids. Oh, shoot, we forgot the birth certificates of so-and-so or whatever. And you just don't say anything. You go up to the border guy, you tell them honestly who you are, what you're doing, and they're basically looking for bad guys. Well, this guy is just trying to get back the other way.
Yeah.
He should have been like, no, nothing to do. I mean, I don't know what he said, but you should never mention the guns you have in the truck. Make them look for it. I mean, they're not going to tear your truck apart.
It might have been in plain sight. I don't
Dude,
know. I mean,
it's
Well,
possible.
usually they search through everything.
No, they don't. In Mexico, when you cross over, you get up to the front, and there's a red light, green
Yeah.
light. And it goes green, you just go. There's no check.
Right.
There's no person to talk to.
But
There's
they
no
can
one there.
rifle through your stuff if you get the red.
If it
Also-
goes red, then you have
yeah,
to
you're
go
screwed.
in. You're not screwed. You
also,
just
he
don't
may not have.
Well, you're,
even
you have
by the-
guns and
Even by the
drugs.
time he's calling 911, he still hasn't fully realized the gravity of the situation. So
Right.
he probably didn't realize it when he's going through. He's probably like, "Hey guys, sorry, I took a wrong turn. And then they're like, "Well, you have anything in your truck?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got my guns, but I just need to turn around." And that's probably when the poop hit the fan,
When it has been red, if it's really busy over there, I just drive anyway. And they've never done anything. And I've been pulled over many times, gotten the red light, because I do this all the time. I would get the red light, you go in, you say, yeah, whatever, and they just move in. They've never searched me. Now, I'm not saying they didn't, but I'm saying this guy went there, he's calling 911, he's freaking out at the border, he's declaring his guns, and that's what people who never cross borders do, is they think he probably looked like a...
It used to be too, like you could pretty much just go into Mexico freely. It was coming back. That was
Used-
hard.
Yes, that's what I was like.
Before it was like you could drive over there and it's like, no, you have a car
Yeah.
full of guns and fruit and no, they don't care. It's coming back. That would be hard.
It's sort of proof to me that this guy's totally innocent because he crossed into Mexico and got caught. Like,
Yeah.
you do not know what you're doing, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
I could get... I mean, there's just no... Anyway, I shouldn't say that. You should do the right thing. Declare everything. I've never gone across the border with a gun, but, it's such a sloppy thing to get into Mexico. It's surprising to me that he got himself in this trouble, and I think it's probably because he was just, oh, I'm a Marine, I've got guns.
I remember when I was living here in San Antonio when we went down to the border towns. Like this is when it was like way way safer. Like when I was a kid, and I went down there with my brothers and my parents, and we just went to to little border towns on the other side of the border to do like shopping. And I remember my brother got like this sword and just like stupid trinket stuff like that. And then coming back, we had some of the snacks in the car, and they were like, "Do you have anything to declare? Any fruits, vegetables, anything like that?" And I'd had an apple, and
You told him.
no,
I have
no,
an apple.
no, listen.
Everyone, I have an apple.
No, my dad was like, "No, we don't have
I
anything."
think
And
it's got bugs in it.
so yeah, we don't have anything, and we drove back. And I remember sitting there in the back seat thinking like, "Oh my God, we just smuggled things into another
apple.
country." I thought it was such a big deal. I was like, I'm freaking out.
They had the mad cow scare in Canada because there were some cows that came from Canada that apparently had this
Sorry
mad
about our cows, eh?
So we were crossing into the United States. My parents had stopped. We'd all gotten burgers from fast food. It was a restaurant called Hardee's, but it's
Carl's Jr. basically.
basically
Same thing.
So you crossed over with
it's
contaminated
actually
burgers.
different, but yes. No, it's called Harvey's.
Harvey's.
Yeah, it's called-
Hardee's is
Hardee's is
Carl's
called.
Jr.
Anyway, but they were like, "Do you have any beef or whatever?" My dad's like, "No." And the guy
There's a cow sitting in the back seat with like a lampshade on its head.
No, my mom has got...
Strange looking lamp
A
you got
burger
back there,
hanging out of her
sir.
mouth.
No, my mom did not have a burger hanging out of her mouth. My mom had a burger in her lap or had the bag, and he's like,
What was that?
yeah, he looks in and
What you got?
he sees the kids eating the burgers, and he's like, there's meat in those burgers. He's like, you can't cross with those burgers in the United States. My dad's like, are you serious? They're going to eat them right now. He's
It's
like,
going to be
"Nope,"
inside them in a minute.
because of the mad cow disease.
Crazy.
And so my dad goes, quick, kids, pull the burgers out of the sandwiches and eat the meat. and so we're
Did he really?
we're in the back seat. We're like tearing our burgers apart, like shoving the beef
That
in our
must have been a
mouth
scene.
right in front of the guard, and the guard got so pissed off.
That is a good point. It's like you can bring it across the border if it's in your body, but not in a bag. Like,
Well, I mean, yeah, 'cause
Contaminated humans crossing the border.
can't give it away.
that's kind of funny.
Mad cow humans.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us this week. We went a little late, but
We'll have the whole crew back next week, I believe. Yes.
we'll have the whole crew back, and we are going to have Neil back in for a question and answer. And he even said he'd go more than an hour with us if the questions take us longer than an hour.
Maybe
So,
we'll test the equipment the day before or
if
something.
you
Yeah,
want
good
us,
idea.
if you watched last week and you were interested in the conversation we had last week or this week, and you wanted some questions from Neil, I already have a couple. We want to know a little bit more about his credentials from Lee Ross 10. Ask that. Email us at thedummyload@gmail.com, and we will put that on the list, and we'll try and get to it while we talk to Neil here in the next week or two.
I'm going to ask him Twilight or True Blood. Which one?
Which one? What does he like?
That was a joke, yes. I was just
Okay.
trying to think of the silliest
Twilight.
teenage girl joke I could.
Well, that's fine. I didn't understand. I was like, okay.
Because you're not a teenage girl like me.
So we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.